Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be looking at another video lecture today in biology, and this one is specifically on population ecology. So we're going to look at how different populations grow, what are some factors that limit a population's ability to grow, and the different growth patterns that are present within different and specific populations. Our objectives today: you're going to be able to compare and contrast different types of population growth, relate reproductive patterns of organisms to models of population growth, and finally to be able to predict the effects of environmental factors on growth. So our focus today is on populations and how they grow. What are some things that control how a population grows? Can it grow fast? Can it grow slow? It depends on many different factors. So we're going to take a look at those later on during this lecture. So how could populations grow? Well, one way that populations can grow is what's called exponential growth. And as the population gets larger, the rate of growth increases. So if you take a look at the graph in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you will see that in subsequent generations, the rate at which the growth occurs increases, as well as the population. The human population has been in exponential growth for quite some time now. Not too long ago, in fact, just barely over 100 years ago, there was a mere 1.5 billion people on this earth. However, now there's almost 4 times as many. In fact, there are more than 4 times as many. We're close to almost 8 billion people on this planet now. That shows exponential growth within the last 100 years. A good example of this is bacteria. Bacteria grows at an exponential rate. So you can see in the graph below what happens in exponential growth. So what can limit a population growth? Well, as the exponential growth period occurs, eventually the population starts to cap out. It starts to not grow as quickly. And this occurs at a location known as the carrying capacity, and that is the number of organisms that an environment can support indefinitely. So this could be due to limiting resources like the number of food. If there isn't enough food, population is not going to grow because organisms aren't going to be able to survive. If there are limiting factors such as a limiting amount of water or nitrogen or carbon or phosphorus or water, I think I said water twice, but that's okay. Those are limiting resources. Those prevent populations from growing. And so once this population approaches the carrying capacity, the growth starts to slow down because the resources are limiting and prevent the population from growing any further. Now, I'm not saying the population stops growing. I'm just saying that the population doesn't increase any. So the number of individuals being born is the same as the number of individuals dying. So the population continues to stay the same once it approaches the carrying capacity. There are several organisms, there are several different life patterns that are based upon different organisms. One of them is called the rapid life pattern. And these organisms reproduce very quickly and in high numbers. And these are typically organisms that don't have a very long lifespan and have a very high mortality rate. That is, they die in very large numbers. So you're looking at things like flies. Bacteria have a rapid life pattern. They reproduce very quickly. Their gestation period, or how long it takes for them to produce offspring, is very, very short. So flies reproduce very quickly. Bacteria produce very quickly and in high numbers. The other type of life pattern is known as the slow life pattern. And these individuals reproduce slowly and in low numbers. So a good example of this is humans. The gestational period for humans is 9 months, and humans typically only have 1 offspring per birth. So occasionally you'll have twins and triplets, but that's typically a very rare occasion. Flies, bacteria, puppies, rabbits, dogs, cats, they have litters. They have large numbers of offspring per birth. However, humans have 1 or 2, so they have a slow life pattern. They reproduce slowly and in low numbers and tend to live longer, whereas flies, bacteria, dogs, cats, rabbits, mice, they typically don't live quite as long, so they have rapid life patterns where they reproduce quickly and in high numbers. So what are some factors that affect population size? Well, one of them is known as a density-dependent factor. And that factor depends on the size of the population. So disease, competition, predators, are all examples of density-dependent factors. Disease occurs more often if there are more animals or more organisms that are grouped close together. Competition for resources. The higher the density of the population in an area, the more competition there is for resources. And the same thing with predators. All right, so those are examples of density-dependent factors. Another factor is a density-independent factor, and that's a factor that does not depend on the size of the population. So you're looking at things like weather, natural disasters, things that it doesn't really matter what the density of the population is. It doesn't have an impact on that particular factor. So precipitation, temperature, weather is an excellent example of a density-independent factor. There really is no controlling over it, regardless of how many individuals are present within the population. So if you take a look at this here, we've got a view of the global population. You can see over time there's been a significant change in the number of people present on Earth. There's been a significant increase. We've seen exponential growth in the human population. Now, why is this the case? Well, there are a couple of reasons. First, the advent of medical technology has allowed humans to live longer, and so the population would increase. The advent of agriculture and technology has helped humans be able to live longer, produce more food, and thus able to increase the carrying capacity of the Earth. If we didn't have these technologies, we certainly wouldn't be able to have 7 billion people on the planet, and it's continually increasing. A couple key terms to know is the birth rate and the death rate, and the birth rate is where the number of births per 1,000 individuals, and the death rate is the number of deaths per 1,000 individuals. So we can look at the graph below and understand that the birth rate by far outnumbers the death rate in terms of the global population because the population is increasing. If the population decreased, the death rate would be larger than the birth rate. And if they are the same, then the population doesn't change at all. The number of individuals being born is the same as the number of individuals dying, so the population would not change at all. So hopefully you understand a little bit about the different types of population growth. We talked a little bit about exponential growth and what happens, and we also talked about carrying capacity and how the growth seems to stop as it approaches the carrying capacity of the particular ecosystem. We were able to relate reproductive patterns of organisms to models of population growth, that is, the rapid growth and the short growth lifespan. Those are all different models of population growth and have different factors that affect them. And secondly, predict effects of environmental factors on growth. We can determine, based upon density-dependent and density-independent factors, how many organisms can live within a particular area, or what's going to happen to the population over time. You'll see a couple of simulations that will help you along with this throughout the rest of the unit. If you have any questions, please let me know and email me, and I'll be able to help you. Thanks.